Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure to welcome Won Jang. Hi Won, how are you?
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Thank you for joining me all the
Good
way
to be
from
here.
Korea.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Oh no, I mean, it's really my pleasure. So, what time is it in Korea right now?
It is 10:32.
In the
so
morning.
it's about 14, 13 hours away. I think.
Right. So it's like Thursday for you, and it's Wednesday night for me.
Yes. So I'm talking to you from the future.
Yeah.
And,
Actually,
future looks good.
yes. Yeah,
Future
it's
looks
looking good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Awesome. I have
bad.
so much to look forward to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, guys, Juan is here to tell me a little bit more about what he does. I have a feeling most of you listening are probably familiar with his name and his work. He is a rapper and also a videographer. I don't know that much about him, so I'm excited to hear more. We do have some mutual friends
Yeah.
that we still don't know how maybe
Which
we
is very
possibly
cool.
have met.
Yeah. It'll ring something. Something's gonna pop in our heads when we in the middle of our interview. Hey,
Yeah.
you're from something like that would come up.
Yeah, well, I mean, either way, I think it's really cool that we're meeting now.
Yeah.
But Juan, right before we started recording, I mentioned that I have heard your music before, and
Thank you.
Oh no, I mean, you don't
Yeah.
need to thank me. It's really good. It's not
Thank you.
difficult to listen to. But and I want to get into all that, like your music and things like that. You're friends with James Han too.
Yeah, Uzihan.
Yeah, and he's been on before and kind
Yeah.
of shared, his wisdom in the music world with me.
Yeah.
But Shout
Shout
I
out
feel
to
like,
Uzihan.
yeah, for real. I feel like, hearing, even though you guys like do similar things as far as like rapping and stuff, like I feel like everyone's story is just so different.
Right.
No matter the industry. So yeah. Without further ado, Juan, what is your day look like? What do you do as a creative artist?
Yeah. Before I get into that, can I just share real quick? Just real quick.
Absolutely.
But I just want to say thank you for bringing me on. In fact, when Blair reached out to me, I was kind of surprised because I currently feel like I'm in no position to be sharing advice and things like this. This is just how I feel. But, to put it, mildly, like I'm still on my way. And so I'm honored that, I could offer advice. And I hope that whatever I share today could be of some encouragement to the listeners. And, take out, what they say, take out the meat, throw out the bones. And so, but yeah, I just want to say thank you. But my day, I mean, it's nothing, like unusual about my day. I feel like I'm a human being, so I have those off days. Try to keep a rhythm of some sorts, but I'm not like bound to one schedule. It really is like I chase after the inspiration. So if the inspiration hits at right before I go to bed, then I get up and write it down or put it on my phone or record it on my voice memo. But honestly, lately I've been trying to sleep a little early because I'm getting right around that age where you kind of need to have some sort of routine, or else you just kind of fall into a little bit of laziness. And it's also not just, you just feel weird.
Sure.
Like
yeah.
you can't do all-nighters like you used to.
That's true.
Yeah. And so you want to kind of start kind of taking care of your body, your mind. It's all connected, your
Yeah,
spirit,
absolutely.
just everything is connected. So yeah, my typical day lately, especially because of COVID, a lot of indoors, try to go for a walk and things like that. But it really depends on the opportunity that kind of lays before you. So yeah, so it's random.
Yes.
A little bit random.
Well, you said you were like in transition, as you mentioned, and but before the transition, I guess what were you doing for work and stuff?
Yeah, so I've been out in Seoul, Korea for since 2018. I've been fortunate to travel, visit back home for a little bit, back and forth. But I've been working for an entertainment company as a PD. That's what they call them here, PD. PD name, that's what
Oh,
they say.
right, right.
Yeah, so it's just pretty much means you're a producer. There's different levels of PD, but it's a small, relatively small company, and
Mm.
I was a video 감독님, video name, video name, video director there, and so most of my task was just it was a music entertainment company, so I directed music videos, and I try to, you know, 홍보. So I try to make anything that markets the artist within the uh, the entertainment company. So
Wow. Okay, so I feel
yeah,
like you're like really underplaying everything, but I'm
yeah,
like this is seems like a really big deal in the sense
yeah.
of, you going to Korea and finding this kind of position, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I from what I understand, Korea is very competitive.
It is, it is. So it's even though it's a small company, I wouldn't say it's not like JYP or what's the other one? I forget, but it's not any of these big companies, but it is very competitive.
Mm,
And so I guess we'll hash it out and whatnot. But yeah, that's what I did. But unfortunately, in 2020,
mm.
when COVID hit, like it took a big hit on the company, and yeah, like you said, it's just how competitive is out here. Just all that, everything considered. So we kind of I transitioned out,
Mm.
and the company like decided to go a different way. So yeah, because it was a music, mostly music label kind of
Okay.
entertainment, and so for them to house like a video people, video artists, it was like a big stress on them,
Sure, yeah.
and so they decided to take it a different route, and so yeah, so I just been freelancing for a while.
Man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah.
COVID was extremely impactful for so many people, and it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate that that had to happen. But
Yeah,
I feel like, just even talking before we started recording, it seems as though it may have
yeah.
been a good move for you. It seems like you're going to come back to Atlanta soon, right?
Yeah, so I plan to come back.
Like
Honestly,
for a
it's like
while or like,
for good, I think.
oh,
Yeah, so it was a tough decision. It was kind of a mixed feeling, but I would say one thing though, like a lot of Kyopos here, a lot of Korean Americans or Asian Americans who or foreigners who come here, a lot of them like for one reason or another, like choose to go back.
mm,
Some stay, but it's more on the rarity, I think. Um, it really depends. And so even the people that have lived here a long time, they kind of um, have like the usual like struggles that we all kind of share as a
mm-hmm,
collective.
mm-hmm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a good place to be, but at the same time, it's a challenging place to be. But
uh,
anywhere too, if you even if you're in Europe and you're from America,
right.
so
You
mhm.
said struggles like that you guys all kind of similarly
Right,
face. Like,
yeah,
can you elaborate on that?
right, sure. So just I mean, different people, different struggles, but I think the underlying factor is that, like we mentioned, it's such a competitive society.
Mm,
There's pressures here that you don't quite face in America. Even if you, I mean, you go to a city, it's similar, like the bad air, a lot of angry people, but I think it's just a different mindset, different mindset here.
mm.
And there's an extra level of cultural differences that you have, um, and it's not a like a negative, like I'm not dissing Korea or dissing America,
No, no.
just pros and cons. But a lot of the things that we have here, like in America, like just free to speak your mind, you know, like free to be yourself is something you can do in Korea. But if you choose to do so, like there's some challenges. And
Interesting.
yeah, you're gonna headbutt with a lot of people,
Right.
um, whether you had good intentions or not. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you're
Yeah.
already, it doesn't matter if you speak like perfect Korean,
Mm.
you already stick out just because like how you dress first. Um, like you stick out. And so it's all about fitting in Korea and trying to be unique at the same time. And that's a very, very difficult thing. And I think if you don't have like a specific calling or desire, like super uber passion, um, it's difficult. Um,
Mm.
but like it really is like uh, depending on who you are and your story. So and yeah, so I have a kind of a mixed feeling about traveling back. I just feel like with this profession, I'll say you're always if always feels like you're on the move, and to me, it's like a never-ending season of transitions. That's how kind
Mm.
of how I feel, and um, I enjoy it,
Mm.
but at the same time, it's a cause of a lot of fear,
Of
but
course, like uncertainty.
uncertainty.
Mm.
But there's a certain aspect you have to embrace
Right. Right.
with this line of profession, if I can say.
Oh man. Okay. So
Yeah,
like let's get into
there's a
your
lot. Yeah,
yeah, I mean like I just feel like there's so much there and I mean I hear everything you're saying and it just really I don't know, it doesn't seem unfamiliar to me just because that's what I imagine like
for sure. Yeah.
for somebody that, you know, um is as creative as you are and wants to do like creative things. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
um like that is the fear for a lot of young people too, right? Like
Yeah.
the instability, but not just young people, it's like young people's parents, you know?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
and then their parents putting on the pressure and telling them like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, like are you sure you want this?" But I felt like it was interesting that you said, you know, like what is your passion? Like are you really deeply passionate about it? And
Yeah.
if you are, then it seems as though that's what's carried you this far.
Yeah.
Um but like,
Yeah.
can you take me back to the beginning? Like,
Right. So, I wasn't born in Atlanta. This is where I'm from, by the way. But I think like it's interesting because our family immigrated to Atlanta when I was 10.
oh,
So
that's like old.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what do you mean old? That's like old. What do you
You
mean?
know, some people tell me they're like born in Korea and they moved here when they were like 2. So I'm like, I
Oh, okay,
mean,
okay, gotcha.
like,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? But like, meaning like when you're
Mm-hmm.
10, you've already
Right.
said like you have Korean roots. You know,
Yeah, I
like
do.
yeah, yeah.
And so there's some pros and cons to that as well. But I think I kind of define myself as a 1.5er.
Mm,
So I'm not really second gen, neither am I first gen. So if it really impacted how like my life, like even the way that I think, and also it affected my struggles too a lot.
mm-hmm,
And so
mm-hmm,
anyway, so for me, it was all about fitting in since the beginning, learning the language, and as you can imagine, like the immigrant, we have a lot of, you know, like community that we know who have shared experience with that. But yeah, I grew up in a immigrant home, and you know, it's a very typical. But you mentioned like parenting earlier, but it's funny because my parents had, you know, they contradicted themselves all the time. Because my dad, you know, he's, you know, like he's pretty smart guy, and he's pretty well read. Um, you know, I feel like a lot of Asian parents are geniuses underneath like their jobs. You know, like what typical our parents. You know, they cleaners or store owners or you know whatever. But they're like there's a lot there are a lot of things. You know, even though that's not their occupation. But
mm,
speaking of that, like my dad really instilled like a lot of dreams to me. Like he listened to a lot of music growing up. Like there's always music playing in the house. like Sunday morning, Saturday morning, when he's not working, I wake up to music or some sort of music DVD or VHS tape.
Mm.
And anyway, but so it was very contradicting because in one hand, my dad was like, dream big, son, and think big and be helpful to people. Like, don't do bad things and etc. You know, be a good person, you know, and think big. But in another hand, it's like, but at the same time, do something, get a license of some kind, um, do something secure. The security is it's all about that security. So he, they very contradicted themselves, and so
Mm.
I think I grew up kind of confused, and so, um, so yeah, I mean that was one thing that I felt like early on, like I didn't want to be like my parents in the sense of like being stuck in a job where um, they don't want, it's a job, you know, it's just a job and there's no passion. You just do
Mm.
it to survive. So, um, yeah, I mean, that security is very important. Now that I'm older, it's more important than ever.
Mm.
And you need some sort of security for sure. Um, but at the same time, there was this pull, like, I don't know how to put it, but a life without some sort of passion or life just that is just secure for
Mm.
me was not life lived. Like there's
Mm.
like this strong like feeling that I grew up with as a child and just like, wow, you know, I did not come all the way to America to like that did not was it didn't sit well with me. It wasn't attractive to me for some reason,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know, and I just grew up with that mindset, and it's somewhat complicated for everyone, for me too. But now that I think back, you know, like yeah, I just yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely.
hmm hmm
And so then at what point did you realize you love music?
Yeah, I mean, I always make like thought music was awesome, like especially because I told you like it was all about fitting in for me,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so you know we fit in like listening to a certain style of music and
Sure.
sharing it with friends, and so that's kind of like what I did early on. Like I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, you know, at the farmers market or H
Yes.
Mart, they used to
Yes.
have tapes. Like various churches would have tapes
Yeah,
recorded.
that's how they would like witness.
Yeah, yeah, that's how they would witness. And so I would take those tapes, it's
Uh-huh.
free, and I would put a little sticker over it, over the dubbing part,
Uh-huh.
and then I would use those tapes to redub. I would make little mixtapes.
Oh my gosh, that is
Yeah,
so smart.
yeah, and I would literally sometimes I would make mixtapes with just one song. So it was just like 60 minutes of one song, and I would give it to my cousins. I would give it to my family. Hey, listen to this.
That is so smart. I'm so
Yeah,
shocked
yeah,
right now. Why didn't I think of
yeah.
that?
But yeah, it's funny. And then you know some parts where I didn't record all over, like all of a sudden, like a church, like in the middle of the sermon, will pop out after a
Right, right.
song. So, and I would apologize, you know, to whoever I gave it to him. But that's kind of like what I did early on. So I've always had a affinity with music and just fitting in, and you know, and at the time like that was kind of like the start of Korean wave, uh,
Mm.
and nobody knew at the time it was like a start of the Korean wave. But you know, like artists um, like when I first came, like Sateji was still around, and Kim Gonmo was around,
Mm-hmm.
and then after right after that, all the boy bands,
Right.
HOT and
Right.
you know Chex Keys and all those guys started coming. So for me, it was like growing up in America, like I didn't have any examples, heroes that I
Mm.
looked up to. There was nobody, and so it's like for me, I kept looking east, and I think a lot of people did that,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's how I garnered like love for music. But it was
Mm.
still later I started to get into music because I didn't. I mean, I am not a rapper. Like I don't have that type of tip like personality that when we associate with rappers, I don't have that personality.
Like, what do you mean? Like
Yeah.
charismatic and stuff? Like,
Yeah,
just kind of.
charismatic, like confident, like uber, like super confident, like too confident.
I guess. I guess.
And you know what they call swag, you dripping with swag,
Yeah.
and you know, from the hood, and you grew up super poor, which I did, but not to that level, you know. And
Right.
so
Right.
um yeah, but yeah, so I did not think that I would like be expressing myself through the art of rap and hip hop. And so
Okay. Well.
surprising, yeah.
Okay. So I know you went to University of Georgia, right?
Yeah, we
I only
did.
know this because of just mutual friends, but
Yeah.
um, and so like when you were at school, what did you study?
Yeah, I studied in um and so well I was saying like I got into music also. Like I like the actual creation of music
Uh huh.
through video. Because when I was making video, I realized you need music to help tell a story and to enhance the experience of video, right? So
Yes.
so yeah, I've always, you know, enjoyed making videos too while making music, but I made videos first.
Okay. Okay.
And so there's no music study for hip hop. You don't major in it. I still don't think you can do that
I
now,
don't think so.
but but you can with video. So that's the closest thing to what I like, and so that's what I did. Um, but there wasn't any major that was like exactly what I wanted to do, and the closest thing I could find was in journalism. So the School of Journalism was the closest thing, and so I majored in pretty much BA in journalism with the focus of media arts. And at the times, it was called telecommunication arts, which was
Yes.
terrible name.
Well,
But
I'm your Hube. I'm also a
oh,
Grady
for real?
graduate,
Oh yeah,
and
Grady.
um, telecom changed to mass media arts,
Yeah,
and that's what I
thank God.
graduated in.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Did you know that prior to the podcast?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, you had no
No
idea. Okay.
clue.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I
it
did
makes
feel.
sense. It makes sense. Like now that you're
Yeah.
telling me, I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I did a little bit of um at the time I think they still have it, but music business as well. It was like a certificate program.
Oh, nice.
And so right when I was getting into it, it was like in the beginning of the music business program. But to be honest though, like it was fun, but it was kind of a like weird experience because I feel like since they just started, we were kind of like the guinea pigs of that whole
Oh,
program.
I see.
And so like yeah, they just had like every day, every class, it was just like no lectures. It was just like musicians would come and they would just speak, which
Oh,
is cool.
that's
But
interesting. I feel like
yeah,
that's kind
yeah.
of cool.
Yeah, it was cool, but like, you know,
You didn't learn
yeah.
anything?
I mean, you know, that's always a thing, you know. And that's something we'll get into, I guess, too, but like it's really what you put into it.
Yeah.
You know, if you just decide to cruise your way out of college, then that's literally what happens. You
And
just
no, absolutely. I mean, I don't think
yeah.
I am applying anything I even learned in college
Yeah,
only because
you
I
really
didn't
don't.
really
Yeah.
make the effort to,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think part of it is not your fault, Blair, but it's like half and half. You know, like there's a limit to the education
Yeah.
system too.
Yeah.
Just like I mean, how much can they teach? And you know, like they can teach it to you so that you can get a grade and a degree, but there's a limit to it as well. So
No,
one thing I
absolutely.
was gonna say is
Hmm.
like if you want to get into the any sort of media industry, um, besides maybe like getting onto like if you want to be anchor or things like that, like but even with that, I just feel like these days you don't really need to go to college.
This is
Um,
like my soapbox right now because I have two kids, and
yeah.
so like my husband and I we go back and forth on a lot of things, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean especially education system just because my son's gonna be in kindergarten not this year but next year, so like even just homeschooling and stuff like because
Wow.
like what is really the point of being at school for 8 hours if you're not learning the things that you're actually interested in, right? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
and
I don't,
need
yeah,
for life. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And so,
actual life. Yeah.
no, I hear what you're saying, and I
Hmm.
feel like,
Mm.
yes, yeah.
So one thing that I learned is that going to college is cool, and it's something. It still gives you in a valuable like a valuable experience, and
Mm, for sure.
but mostly it's really the connections that you make and the time that you can use that time to you have a lot of free time. I mean, more time than when you're out of school, but you can use that time to keep learning. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a good time. It's you're in this really nice bubble, safety net in some sense of school. So it's nice, but if you are really gung ho and you're confident and you know what you want to do, I don't think you don't really need it. And so you can right out of high school or even in high school, you can like just go for it and whatever it is. And there's so many resources available now versus when I was in high school.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's really up to you.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part being the Asian American, Korean
Mm-hmm.
growing up in Korean American is it's like a college is a must. And so yeah, and so for us, maybe we should go to college, but when you do go to college, like use that time wisely and not just depend on it. Especially if we're talking about this industry, the
Yeah.
media industry,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. That's sound
So
advice. That's good.
yeah.
Okay, so just kind of pushing through the timeline, I guess. You graduate college, you
Hmm.
have a degree and a bachelor's in media from
Yeah.
Grady, and then you said you got your, was it a music business?
Well,
Like,
I almost did, but it's a funny, sad story. But um, I had to take accounting,
uh huh.
but I was just so terrible at accounting.
Uh huh.
And so that's another advice for you. Don't ever underestimate accounting.
No, I mean,
It started
I
out very
don't.
easy.
I
It
personally do
started, yeah,
not.
it started out very easy. And I was just like, I don't need to study for this. And so, yeah, I didn't think it was worth taking the accounting. So I didn't get it, but I don't regret it though,
Oh
just
no, I don't
because
think it's a big, huge deal,
no,
but
I just felt like I learned all that I could.
mm,
And I guess we're getting into like my first job and things like that. And I can tell you that even if I had that certificate, it doesn't really mean much
okay,
in the actual
I
reality.
see, I see.
Nobody really looks at it and
Sure.
wow, maybe some people, but in actuality,
Maybe it gets
so
you in the door for some places,
maybe, yeah, maybe,
but then maybe that's it after that. But
yeah.
yeah, okay, so you
Hmm.
graduate.
Hmm.
Then what was like, I mean, because that's like, for a lot of
Right.
people, graduating college is like a reality shock,
Hmm.
because it's like when the adulting really starts and
Yeah.
you're no longer told what to do with your life, and now you have to actually make some decisions. And so, yeah, what did those decisions look like for you?
Yeah. And so, um, like I wanted to just, what I wanted was more experience
Hmm.
in the field and um,
Oh, sorry,
with
can I
all,
interrupt
yeah,
you real quick?
go ahead.
So, like, at this point after graduating, like,
Uh-huh.
for you, like, the dream, the hope, like, what was it as far as like
Okay.
career goes?
Yeah. So, to be honest, like I was around 22 or 20, 23, or I think
Mm-hmm.
21, but I was kind of conflicted um, between the two paths. And so even when I was in school, like towards the end, is when I was in Grady College, and it's like really short time, 2 years of like stuff you actually want to do, um, and I was conflicted at the time because that's when I was like really getting into rapping and just making music. And this whole time I started making music in high school, while I was making video. And so I just kept trying to improve, and just something you naturally happens because you keep doing it with no reason other than you just, hey, this is fun. I enjoy, and it was an outlet for me to express, um, all the stuff that I was talking about, like fitting in,
Mm.
figuring out who I am,
Mm-hmm.
my identity,
Mm-hmm.
just struggles and all the triumphs too.
Mm.
And so I was conflicted at that point. Like, man, do I do music or do I pursue video? Do I do another job? Because hey, this job ain't paying me right now. So it's just like
Mm.
a lot of identity stuff. Like, man, what
Mm-hmm.
do I do in my life? So um, to share to your listeners that it's okay, like to even when you get out of college, like, man, it's okay if you don't have it somewhat figured out.
Yeah.
It's nice if you do, but even if you do, like, it's not always gonna work out in the direction you want it. And so I was kind of in that, like, right in the middle. And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
even my professor, kind of like the interview before you go graduate, he was like, "So what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I really love music and blah blah blah." And so he's like, "Why don't you just do music then?" And then at the time I was like, "Well, I don't know. It's so much uncertainty there, even more than video." And so yeah, so I was kind of torn between the two. But
Mm.
what eventually happened was, as I was making music, I was pursuing job opportunities in video,
Okay.
and so which is a common thing, but it really kind of worked out for me because, like, those two things were always kind of like together for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing a lot of video work that involved music, so music videos and working with artists, things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, when I got out, I was like, for the first year, I was like, wow, I this doesn't mean much. I didn't get any jobs like past after a year, and
Mm.
so it was like a really um, like reality hit me real quick, and I went through a lot of like humbling process.
Yeah, yeah,
I
for
was like,
sure.
man, what am I, man? I'm dirt. Like
Mm.
that's how I felt like.
Mm.
And I did a lot of part times, um, figuring things out. So yeah, so it just, I think we'll get into it, but it took a lot of just kind of going out in faith, and like, if you don't believe that kind of stuff, like you need some luck and also some miracle. And I do want to say that they are there,
Mm.
but yeah, there's an aspect of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So, I don't like. I don't want to like miss anything, but
Sure. Sure.
I'm curious, like if we could backtrack just a little
Sure.
bit
Yeah.
about just you like doing music and stuff.
Yeah.
During that time, like social media and everything was not prevalent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like how did you okay, one, like you just recorded like by yourself, like with your own equipment, and then
Hmm.
is my question. And then my other question is like, how did you even push your music out during that time?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm definitely, even now, I'm not like a big artist. Like, I'm still, like I said, like, I'm on my way, and just working.
Mm.
But that's not the purpose, obviously, for me, to like become like this biggest artist. I'm sure we'll get into that, but for me, like, yeah, you're right. Like, there was no social, like, anything like that. You could do that, but you had to put your stuff up. Um, this was before YouTube, so you didn't. I didn't really put up stuff.
Mm.
One, because I was kind of still developing, and I
Sure.
knew that, and I felt a little shy. Like, I'm naturally a shy person. Like,
Uh-huh.
I didn't like getting in front of people, um, which is why hip hop really was attractive to me because like when I was writing stuff, like I was painting a picture and I was writing down a lot of my hopes. And in that hope, I saw myself being more confident and
Mm.
becoming a better person and all that, being a better son, even like having money, like you kind of, I was like early on, I was writing stuff, you know, like that and exploring those themes um, and, you know, in the rare times when I did get it in front of people to share music, like it was like very, still very, even now, like nerve wracking experience. And so,
Mm.
um, yeah, and so that's what I did. Not all the time, but mostly it was just me at home. And yeah, I mean, it's not like even though we didn't have those things like as much resource we do now, like there were still resources available. Like
Hmm.
I could burn a CD still.
That's true.
And I literally like the
Oh
first,
man, good times.
yeah, I could, yeah, I enjoyed that. I really did. Like I would, I didn't even know like you could pay and do that. Like like companies to print out CDs for you. I didn't know. So what I did was I just got those 100 CD bundles,
Yeah.
and then I would find the ones with the white like things you could draw on them.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh
You
huh.
know, and then that's what I did. I literally drew each CD was hand printed. I bought the disc, and that's what I did. And at my parents' job, there was like a copy machine.
Uh huh.
So I initially drew like my face, like weird, like just like an animated face, and then um, I copied that, and then I just made the CDs, and I made like 100, and then I just passed it out to people that I knew. And at the time, it was just people at my church, friends, people that I felt comfortable sharing my music with, and so that's kind of like what I did. Um, and I think even now, if you ask like some people that knew me from the past, like some of them might have those CDs still, and um, so that's how like not like a vast amount, but that's how like word got around for me. Like, oh yeah, Juan, you know, he's doing music.
That's
Um,
pretty awesome, man. I'm like,
yeah,
how do I get my hand on one of those CDs? I want to
yeah.
hear
Please
it.
don't, because a lot of it is filled with a lot of embarrassing. If I can't, I cringe when I listen to
Yeah.
that now. But I have it at my house. Like,
Yeah.
just I have like a whole, you know, section that I just put away.
That's
I wanted to
pretty.
keep that. Yeah,
That's a good like, like grind story. Like, like what you had to do to like cuz you
yeah,
loved it so much. I
yeah.
feel
It,
like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't do stuff like that if you don't enjoy it
yeah.
and, feel passionate about it. That's really cool. I like
Mm-hmm.
that.
It was fun. Yeah,
Okay, so like you're looking for like fast forward and
yeah,
you're looking for video jobs. You said the first year out of college was really crappy for you,
yeah.
which is relatable. I like
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same story obviously, but my sentiments are very similar. I
Mm-hmm.
just realized I hated post editing. I thought I
Yeah.
wanted to do that, and then I was like, this sucks. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do this.
Right.
And I went into like live sports television producing for a little while, and it was great. But at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, I was like, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, now what? Like,
Yeah.
So I mean, I think what you're sharing is like very familiar to a lot of us, right? That
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
doing it now.
But
But uh-huh.
yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, yeah. So that you graduated what
10.
2010, 10,
Yeah.
right?
2010. Yeah.
And then you went to Korea. You said in 2018.
Yeah.
That's a big gap.
Sure. So I didn't go to Korea. I didn't start off like, hey, I'm gonna go to Korea. Like that's not what happened.
Uh huh.
But it's I think it's gonna require like two podcasts to explain the whole thing. But basically, like I did end up getting a job. But one thing I did wanted to say that
Mm-hmm.
that year that I spent, I think was really required though for me.
Mm.
Um, I mean, to be honest, I think I feel like a couple months would have been fine, um, but even so, like that year of just being humbled and just getting struck with that reality, like definitely a lot of songs came out from that time, and a lot
Yeah.
of growth just
Yeah.
happened, I
Yeah.
feel. And there's a lot of things in college that you just cannot learn. And I realized, like, even though like I knew a lot of stuff and I knew a lot of people, like you get all that in school too, but it does not prepare you like until you actually come face to face with it. And um which is okay. And so that year to me, honestly was, it played a crucial role in shaping me in
Wow.
my character.
Wow.
And that's one thing that I wanted to share. That's one thing I feel really adamant about. Is one thing I realize is, at the end of the day, character is the most important thing that you
Hmm.
can develop, more than your skills. Like, your character, if your character is great, so many things fall in line for you. And I think I speak from experience from that. And I think you can relate with that too.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I did get a job, which is funny story. I applied using monster.com. I don't even know if it still exists. Does
I
it
think
still
so. I
exist?
think it
It
does.
still
Yeah.
exists? Okay. Monster.com. I remember spreading my application on that thing like everywhere, but I had applied to this place and I had forgotten about it. And they got back to me half a year later. So
Oh
six
my
months later, they
goodness.
got back to me. I didn't even know I applied. Like,
Uh-huh.
when did I apply to this place? And um, it was this small, like, Christian TV company, TV production company. And
What?
at first, I was kind of like worried because, is this like a cult? Like, I was kind of worried. Like, is this like a weird place? But thankfully, it turned out to be okay. But
Okay, good.
yeah. But again, like when I talked to you earlier about like miracles and like things just happening, you
Mm,
don't even you can't control that kind of things.
mm.
And so that's what happened for me. And yeah, and yeah, even the interviewing process was kind of crazy because it was like a group interview. I was the last person to be interviewed, and it's one of those times when my name and me being Korean is really interesting. Really took advantage, like, because I stood out. My
Right.
name stood out. A lot of people think like I'm from like Argentina or like South America
Oh,
because
because it's
my
Juan.
name, Juan, like Juan, Juan. Is that what your name is? In America,
I
only in America.
guess. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, when I had that interview, like, it was a group interview, and I really stood out to them, and everything that I had built up to that point, like, I didn't get to share with you, but like the way that I would make videos in high school was crazy. Like, again, we didn't have YouTube like that, and even if we did, nobody was putting up stuff like
Mm,
like that, and it wasn't
mm-hmm,
even in HD. It
mm-hmm,
was like
mm-hmm.
three uh
Yes.
360p, like
368
480,
probably.
like it was. Some people were still, yeah, getting into DSL and cable modems then. It was just crazy times. But so I would go to the library to rent VHS tapes. And the reason why I would do that is so that I can get the footage off of these tapes. And I would make little videos, music montages and stuff
That's
using those
crazy.
and stuff. And so all that was building for me. Like,
Mm.
and so it's interesting because in that job interview, like, obviously they want to see your work, like your demo reel. And so I showed them my work from college, and they were like, "Oh, it's cool." And then I showed them a video that I did in high school. It's
Mm-hmm.
like this nerdy video that I made, and like I think I used like Mario, like
Okay.
stuff. Like I used like the game, and then I made this like, and I put like a Super Mario hip hop beat of some kind. It was like a
Okay.
remix. I still have it somewhere. I don't know, but I showed them that, and they were like, "Yo," like they were impressed. And it's not that the quality of it was impressive to them, but it was like
Right.
the passion. And like,
The
wow, this
outside the
guy,
box
yeah,
thinking.
yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
guy really likes video. and and of course, like the character stuff that I was talking about, it was more
Mm,
important to them
sure.
because but besides that, as far as like the passion and the desire, like that's what helped me stick out. And so
Mm,
um, they saw some kind of potential, and so I worked there for 4 years, and it was another important time for me to
mm,
grow, uh, just all over, like my character, just me being a better person, me being a more forgiving person, gracious person, growing more in confidence. And yeah, it was only, I needed that time for me to eventually um, come out here in
mm.
Korea. So a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so many layers to this
Yeah.
story, but I am curious just for the sake of the podcast itself.
Right.
Um, as far as, your job as a videographer for this, what you said,
Yeah.
what is it
It's
a
like a
broad?
Christian production. Yeah. They had like a TV show and a radio
Okay.
show. It was like a TV/radio show.
Okay.
Um, mhm.
So like what could you tell me a little bit more about your job as a videographer for them during that time? Like kind of like
Yeah.
what kind of things you would do?
hmm Yeah. So it was a relatively small production firm.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a lot of room for me to grow and learn. And so
Mhm.
what I did was I was a video editor slash, I ended up being the videographer. So, um, it's unique to each production firm or place wherever you end up working at, if you do decide to work at a production firm.
Mhm.
But it just revolved around this host, and then he had a daily podcast and a TV show
Mhm.
for certain cable networks. And
I
so,
see.
um, we would shoot the shows, like I think Tuesday and Wednesday, I think. And so we would, um, it revolved around this host moving around in a set with two camera guys. And so I was one of the camera guys. And so
Mm.
we had me and my friend, my colleague, who I'm still close friends with to this day. We would do these elaborate dance. Um, so pretty much not trying to get into the shot, into the frame.
Right, right.
And yeah, that's what we did. And yeah, so I would take then those um, the shows that we just shot, and I would be the one editing it. And the colleague that was there before me, he would supervise and fine tune everything and make sure I didn't miss out anything. And so that was my duties. And so
Okay.
just editing and shooting, and and if I have ideas, I would share it, things like that. Yeah,
So do you like editing?
I do. I do enjoy it. And I feel like that's what I did more than the actual shooting,
Uh-huh.
just because you realize like um, shooting revolves around, if you want to do something more elaborate, you need more people.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
you need like a crew. um, and one thing is with the art of filming, you can't do it all by yourself. And so
Mm.
I ended up doing a lot more editing, just because like my desire to make stuff was great, but yet I didn't have a lot of people to shoot with and things like that. And so I just had to do whatever I had to do at the time.
Mhm.
Um, and so like my editing skills just, I think, became a little bit better than actual shooting skills.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that's what I ended up doing more. Um, do I enjoy it? I do, but it's hard. It's getting harder.
Like, okay, so the reason I hated it was just like my personality as a perfectionist. I just would get
Right.
into these modes of like unsatisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I redo it, I'm still unsatisfied. I have to do it again. And like
Yeah.
it was so tedious, but like I know people really love it. But
Mm-hmm.
like do you enjoy that process too?
Um, some aspects of it.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's more enjoyable when you're just editing and you don't have anybody to really uh like speak to, in terms of like
Mm,
nobody's like managing your editing
sure.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when it becomes more difficult
Right.
and potentially frustrating. But as far as just like the art of editing, I think it's really a fun and rewarding process. Um, and part of that perfection that you talk about, being detailed oriented, like, yeah, I mean, that is a stress too for me. But I think when you edit, I think over the years, I've edited a lot of different things. I realize when I think back. But part of that is is necessary. But
Mm,
you know, you have to kind of let go in some
right.
sense, like, and you have to have that constant thought of like, yes, you want to be detailed and you don't want to miss anything, but even if you did, have peace knowing that whatever you make is not going to be perfect. There's nothing there's no such thing as perfection, a perfect film or a perfect video. And the thing about it is that besides the like the standard general rule, like if you're shooting an interview, like you want to have them in the frame. Like you
Right.
want to make sure people can see the person's face. Like other than those general rules, like there is no rule.
Mm,
Like whatever you make is whatever you make. And yeah, I mean, if you make it so that most people would enjoy it, I mean, yeah, most people will enjoy it. But
mm.
just because you make it in a weird way doesn't mean that is a bad thing, or um, but obviously there's consequences of that. But at the same time, I'm just saying, like, you just kind of release, like, it's like it's that kind of like your baby, and then you kind of have to release it, let them out into the world, and yeah. And
Yeah,
as a mom, yeah, yeah,
no, I
something like
just
that,
feel
yeah,
like,
yeah,
with any creative too, it's like I feel like all creators are just so brave. Like they have to be so vulnerable with what they do, and you know, something so
hmm,
personal, they're, like you said, releasing it to the
right,
world to see.
hmm,
And but again, I guess it comes back to what it is that you said about just being confident in what it is that you're good at and you love
yeah,
in order to share it with other people.
right, right.
Um, but
Just I
yeah.
think just finding that peace, like, it comes with the territory, and just knowing that it's going to be okay. And this is why I keep talking about character, and because that all of that falls into it. Character isn't, I'm not just talking about character that how you're viewed, from other people, but your heart, like how you process
Mm,
things,
mm,
how you deal with failure. Like some people even say it's not failure, there's no such thing as failure, like
mm,
just being able to have that and build over the years that kind of process, like how you deal with pain, how you deal with being said no, being rejected,
mm,
um, like all kinds of things come into play. And so, yeah, that does scare me. Like, man, I feel like I'm missing something when I put out
mm,
something. But
mm.
it's like sometimes, like, just, just like having a deadline helps too. Cause
Helps,
like,
helps.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
you just have, you don't have a choice. So you just let it go.
Right,
And,
right, right.
oh, well, kind of thing. And, but yeah, I mean, and as you develop that, you just kind of get better at um, being okay with, you try your best, um, and then you're okay with the results, and
Mm.
then you on to the next, let's go to the next thing. And so um, I do enjoy it, but just it's getting tough though, the sitting down and um, yeah. So you have to do what you can. You got to take walks. Maybe you get a standing desk, or you do what you can. You edit in your head to
And
save
then,
time.
oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. But that, you don't even have to try. That happens to you.
Right.
Like you
Over
shoot,
time.
you edit in your head, and you shoot it in a way where, with the editing in mind. And so,
Oh yeah,
um,
so I guess that happens, right? Like you don't need, what shots you want
mm-hmm,
already.
Yeah.
So you just do those and then maybe some
Yeah.
extra B-roll.
Yeah.
But
And like a lot of times that's why they post shoot,
what's that?
which mean like they shoot after the fact. So they shoot anything that was missing. So if there's a big budget, they can do stuff like that to go back and,
Oh.
oh, we should shoot that or film that. Like, oh man, that would be great for this scene, because a lot
Mm.
of stuff you can always plan, but there's always stuff where, oh man, like we need to reshoot this, or this would be great in addition. And so that kind of stuff happens, but most likely it doesn't. um, it's for me at least.
Yeah.
Maybe other more accomplished filmers would beg to differ, but for me, when you work with like smaller gigs and smaller mid grade budget stuff, like you have to kind of get it in the right, like the first time,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to fix everything during editing. But
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, time is money too, so
yeah,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Okay, so you after 4 years of working there, you get this experience, and
Hmm.
what's next for you?
Yeah. So what happened was during those 4 years, like it's what started happening was since it was a small firm and it was very comfortable, and I think if I just was comfortable, I think I could have worked there for a little longer, even.
Mm,
But I started having like like these like moments in when I was working, like um, I just felt like I outgrew the place,
I
and
see.
so my dreams was getting bigger, and I think a lot of it happened with like just um, certain frustrations that I had with the direction of the company at the time.
Mm,
And so like I felt like we could do a lot of stuff there, and I really resonated with my colleagues in that they were just as passionate too. And so there's a lot of aspects like the art form of it. Like we always felt like we could like turn it up a notch and
mm,
be really creative, and
mhm, mhm,
why not, like we've always like as creatives you kind of have that,
mhm, mhm.
and like usually the people who are not, who are usually the boss, who are the client or whatnot, they don't quite see what you see. And so
Mhm.
even though it is your job to convince them and show them, but at the same time there's limitations there to how much you can show them.
Right.
um, so that's what kind of happened over time. And so even when I was working there, I was like thinking about how do I improve and as an artist. And so, like I was saying, like when I was, even though I was doing video stuff, I've always had this passion to make music, and it was like a
Mm,
natural thing for me. Like whenever I'm going through things, even if I'm happy, it was just like a way for me to express. I don't know why me expressing stuff was important for me, but I don't know. It was just like a thing for me. Like it was important thing, um, and it was like a muscle. Um,
So,
yeah,
okay, like you
yeah,
know, rappers are usually good with their words, right? And so you say
right.
express. So, like, for you, it came in the form of writing or like, because I'm like, man, I
Hmm.
listen to some of your lyrics. I'm like,
Yeah,
how, and not just you, Uzuhan too, like a lot of
right.
you guys. And
Yeah,
I'm like, how do they do that? Like,
right.
like so smart and
Hmm.
clever. Like, yeah.
Right.
So,
I would
that,
definitely, yeah,
yeah.
I would definitely say to me, maybe it's just because me, but Uzan is more of the lyricist, I think. But like for me, it's like, thank you for saying that. That means a lot. But I've always felt like I'm not really good with words. Like that's kind of like how I feel. Thank you for saying that. But I just feel like maybe I'm just good at sharing my being honest, and
Okay.
um and I know I'm not saying like, you know it's not good, but you kind of develop that just by doing it,
I
trial and
see.
error. um and I've always felt like my language isn't perfect in terms of like I don't think my English is perfect. I don't think my Korean is perfect.
Mm,
Going back to my 1.5,
mm,
you know, like I'm neither. That's kind of like how I feel. But um, yeah, you just kind of do it. And what was the original question?
oh, my question was like, so
Yeah,
for you, like, you said you
yeah,
you needed a way to express yourself.
yeah.
And so like I know it came in a form of music, but like did this I'm guess what I'm asking is like for you as an artist,
Hmm.
does that come like do the beats come to you first or like does the
Uh,
words come to you first or how does when you say
hmm.
express like what
Hmm.
is that expression? Like what's the form?
Yeah. I mean, like early on, like the words came first
Mm.
because I think I just had lot more questions when I was younger
Mm.
and like wonderment, I think. Not that I don't have those things now, but I think I just kind of wised up in some sense too. And I've learned and I've seen with my own eyes and dealt it with my own heart. And so some of those questions were answered. And so I used to write a lot more without the beat back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to really zero in on like the actual craft of music making. And one thing, this is like a helpful tip that I got from some of my colleagues was that I just had too many words like within the bars, the beat, the BPM. And it was just kind of like I was not flowing well. Like it was just more about like my heart
Right, right.
versus the
Okay.
actual craft of the song. And so once I started to zero in of the actual craft of the song and like taking words out, and like people talk about that too. It's like it's not really how much you put in, but it's about art is about how much you take out,
Mm.
you're willing to take out. And so when I started doing that, like that's when I kind of started getting more used to writing to the beat. And so the
Mm.
beat comes first now. And
Okay.
so I started to imagine, not that like I don't imagine and like being honest and express how I feel, but it's more beat first and what that beat is like. Each beat is different, the mood and what it's saying and what the intention of the producer is different. So yeah, a lot of times what ends up happening is I just kind of go with where the music takes me.
Mm.
And so it's like, oh, like I go in there, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write a love song. Sometimes I don't go in there and that's not what I get at times. Even though I
Okay.
intend to go in at as a love song, like that's
Okay.
not what happens. And so um yeah, so I write to the beat more. So
Okay.
it really
Okay.
depends. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry for that little sidebar.
It's all
But
right.
yeah, so you were saying you felt like you were at times outgrowing where you
Mm-hmm.
were in your job.
Right.
Um and your creative expression was kind of coming through.
Yeah.
And then what were you saying? What happened next?
Yeah, so what I was saying is that backdrop is important because I was looking for opportunities, and one thing good about this profession is that you meet a lot of people,
Mm,
and you meet a lot of interesting people. It doesn't have to be a lot, but a lot of people that you wouldn't have never met if it wasn't because of this. And so um, and
sorry,
also
this
go ahead.
being videography or this being
Both,
music?
both,
Okay, both. Okay.
both. And I think this is like where kind of my faith comes in too, is that
Mm,
I think like um when you have faith, you just kind of have this, it's not a burden, but you kind of have a feeling of like um like not everybody can be like a missionary like of the traditional sort, but you want to do something for God, and like you want to matter in some ways. And I think everybody can relate with that in some sense, like you want to matter. And
mm,
so you're and I I just think that's how humans are. We're never satisfied, and we want to keep growing and make a difference. And so I felt like that's one of the things I felt like outgrew me from that job. And so I was looking for opportunities, and what happened was I went into a random concert with our mutual friend Edward,
Mm-hmm.
um, when he was rapping uh, by the name of Captivated. Shout
Yes.
out to Captivated. But so I met him. He's also UGA grad, a lot younger than us. But um, so I had met him previously because of music, because we
Uh,
both was rapping, and so I went to go support him, and he opened up with this band called Amp Movement. Shout out to them too. And as you know, Amp consisted of, at the time, Jahan, Uzuhan, and Samak and CL, and those three guys was in a uh, hip hop group together. And so it was a show. I didn't go with any expectation originally, to just to support Edward and
mm-hmm.
his show, but um, we just ended up having like after the show, we just all kind of kicked it together, and I realized like a lot of things, a lot of the hunger, a lot of the um, things that I had, I shared with them, with these guys. And so and at the time, they were traveling to Korea back and forth
Mm.
to perform and share music, and um, almost also kind of do ministry as well. But so yeah, so I started working with them as I was working at my job. And what ended up happening was I just kind of took a risk and jumped in
Wow.
with them.
Wow.
So I became their videographer, um, and as I was making music at the same time. And I think we'll get into next, but that's how I started coming out to Korea um, with those brothers. And, you know,
Oh,
yeah,
wow, interesting. I had no
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
And I say that just because, like, after talking to Uzuhan and just knowing a little bit about AMP and their
Hmm.
following too, I think it's really cool. I mean, that was God. That's God, right? Like,
Yeah, there's definitely. And this is the stuff that I was saying, is that, wow, your character, I'm not saying I'm like this like angel of a person, or like I'm so like good to people. That's not what I'm saying. But like um, all this stuff, like being humbled because like you don't have any opportunities, or like, wow, like I'm like there's a lot of growth that I need
mm,
as a rapper or as a videographer. Like those times are crucial. And even when you're doing at your best, like, people are loving what you do, like you, um, you know, have a good approach, with a humble approach, and like, and you're for other people and things like that. Just all that, like, really matters. And
mm,
not that, like for me, like I've kind of reached the Mount Everest of success or anything like that. But personally, I felt like a lot of my breakthroughs, a lot of the next opportunities, like how that was built. Um, Not saying that like my skills and things, like of course I needed those things,
mm,
but um, I learned like all those skills don't matter if you are a jerk. Nobody's gonna work
absolutely.
with you.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
this industry, you need to work with people. You need other people.
Mm,
I don't care what you do. You could rap all you want, but you need a producer.
mm,
Maybe you produce yourself. You could do everything by yourself. You need other people to listen to your stuff. You're always dependent on other people. So all that said, I feel like that's like the biggest lesson that I wanted to share, and that I'm still learning,
yeah.
is the character
Absolutely.
part. And so
Absolutely.
it's really weird. Like, and the skills will follow, because like, again, character stuff isn't just like your personality stuff, or um, like a band-aid. Like, oh, I'm a little bit angry. Like, not I'm not talking about just that, but like um, yeah, all that follows, like your skills and your desire to be better at what you do.
Yeah,
It starts with that, like
for
character.
sure.
And so I think that's what happened. And so I started and even me taking that risk and leaving that comfort zone of
Mm.
leaving a monthly income, check, all that. Like, it was daunting, but I realized I valued more of that more so than like security. It's
Right.
weird. I know it's weird, but yeah, it's like, I guess creatives are kind of dreamers at heart.
No, they definitely are. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's really about what you value. Like, do you
Mm.
value money and security over everything? Which is, if you don't let that like get to your head, you don't let that ruin you. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a respectable route, and it's perfectly fine. But I also think that the other part of chasing after, like, it's not something like it's like it's not floating in the air. Like, it's perfectly fine, um, and it's okay, and you can embrace it. And I just think there's just something more important to than just um, that. To certain people, um, those are things are more important,
Yeah.
like living and living with passion
Mhm.
and being happy at your job, whatever it is. And so I feel
Those
like I'm
all sound
kind of,
like important things to me, but
yeah,
but of course, yeah, there's
for
definitely
sure.
two sides to it.
Yeah.
You know, so as you are, you said you took the risk and you decided to kind of be all in and be their videographer for AMP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then like in doing that, I'm not sure what, since we're talking about like surviving and like
Mhm.
having financial stability, like as far
Yeah.
that, was there ever a time in these moments, even though you loved what you're doing, that you like doubted or like questioned your situation?
Yeah. I mean, I was doubting all the time,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay.
It was, I'll just say, like, I wasn't, like, I was questioning a lot. I was, still right now, even now, I told you, like,
Mm,
I'm in transition. So,
yeah, yeah.
like, and I'm always questioning,
Mm,
praying and wondering, like, God, what do you want me to do?
right, right.
There's a sense of dependence there, for
Mm,
sure. Um, but I try not to let it become anything more than that.
yeah.
Sometimes it does, but it plays a factor.
Mm,
Whatever profession, whatever you decide to do in your life, for sure, like, you're always in fear of some kind, but it's about how you deal with that fear. And so
right.
fear is okay. It's
How do
all
you
right.
deal with it?
Um, Different ways. Sometimes I just end up fearing.
Yeah.
Um, but I just, for me personally, I just, go to, my faith. I
Mm,
pray to God, and but also I depend on other like-minded brothers,
yeah.
um, and talk with them,
Mm,
and just like pick their brains about certain things, or as I vent or share my heart, like, they understand and help me process. They also vent to me.
yeah.
Um, it could be really simple, just eating good food, not thinking about, you know, certain situations, and getting back to it. Go for a walk. Um, and the most important thing is you just make a decision.
Right.
I don't know how other people do it, but personally, it's just so nice having a faith, because you kind of let go of certain things.
Mm,
And once you let go, you're able to let go of certain things, meaning, like, that it's okay. Like, your life, you are loved, you are taken care of, and that because God is good all the time, like, He got you.
yeah.
And just, like, personally, like, that, you don't know how much peace, like, ultimately, in having that in your backdrop. Like, Wow. So then you're able to make certain decisions, knowing that man, there's no failure in decisions,
Hmm. Yes.
unless you do something bad, like you disobey a law, or I'm not talking about that, but like you make a decent decision, whatever it is. Like for me, like going on this adventure or taking that leap of faith to leave my job and go with these uh, other musicians who also don't have money, but what we shared was we had a dream, and we had this passion
Yeah.
to share music and share lives and make a difference in that way. There's all kinds of ways, like, but I couldn't have done that without having that in the backdrop, like knowing that man, like there's no wrong decision here. If I, because I'm in what they say, the will of God, like everything I do because I'm with Him, I'm good. Like there's no wrong decision here, and um, yeah, I mean you can make better decisions, but like, and you develop wisdom over the years, like but I realized there's no regrets, and so
Yeah.
you let that kind of wash over you, or you let it kind of sit with you, and you're able to have peace knowing that I'm good. This was meant to be.
No, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
which is again like believing in the bigger purpose of life is
Right.
less burdening, I think, on a person too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, okay, so you're going back and forth from Korea to the States, and at what
Yeah.
point, like, yeah, like, did you decide? I mean, you said 2018
Yeah.
is when you moved there, but like,
Hmm.
what was the factor?
So I started actually even thinking about going, not moving initially, but even going in the year of 2014. So I started working for my first job in 2011,
Hmm.
and um, around that's the year that I met these guys, and so at the time they were kind of going too, and so it kind of intrigued me. Um, and I don't know if other listeners can relate, but I just think automatically growing up as an Asian American or Korean American, you kind of have a heart for the motherland. And as I was sharing earlier, like even me, like early on, I was looking into the East with like the music and the inspiration, um, and like you kind of look to the dramas, and oh, there's another person that looked like me, and oh, they can act and they could sing just as well, or like you kind of look to that. And so, and for me in particular, like I've came when I was 10, and so I've had memories of uh, my hometown.
Yeah,
Kwachon is where I grew up, and I grew up in other places too, but that's what I remember.
I see. Yeah.
And so Kwachon was like this, like I had a roadmap in my head of my old
Mm,
town where I used to like run around with other kids, and it was such a fun time for me, and I'm sure with other people too. The childhood is very important. So I've always had this like thing, like I wonder what changed, or it was like kind of romantic like thing for me. Like I've
mm,
always imagined, and for some reason I never went back. And so for 19 years, I didn't go back or visit. Um, always envied people who got to travel back and like ate up the foods and visit the stuff. And
yeah.
um, but but for me, like I personally had like I was born there, so I've had this like uh, dreams of going back, and had a big heart, I think. And so that was there before even I met Amp. And so um, crazy because like, but I didn't know how I could go back. Like when do I do that?
Mm,
I just had this fear, like um, even just if even just to visit, like I didn't know I could do that. And so um, but I think in a way God answered my prayers in the form of, it's crazy because like at the same time I was praying for like help me to meet like-minded people, like
yeah.
um, and then so God kind of like blessed me with fellow brothers, and also this opportunity to see and travel back.
Yeah.
And so 14, that's when I started kind of thinking, and it was in 2015 when I first went after I had left my job, and um, but prior to then, we were doing a lot of stuff. Like we were, I was traveling with them in various places, and at the time they were also moving to Atlanta to relocate.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so yeah, we were. I was, making music personally and helping these guys because even though they were Sam and James, they have had their own individual careers in
Right.
terms of being an artist
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and so I would help them um, with their videos, and I've had documentaries that I've shot for them, and
Mm.
a lot of good stuff. A lot of you could check. It's still up there on YouTube, but
No, I'll definitely check it out.
yeah, yeah, on Good Fruit YouTube page. But yeah, so that's what happened. Is started kind of traveling. 15. We would travel in spurts, like so months. We would go and 1 month spend there, and then come back, and then go there during summer or winter, just things like that. So
Nice.
that's when I started like dreaming, like, oh, this is actually a possibility for me. Because
Mm.
up to then, like I had nothing. Like
Mm.
I had no idea what Korea is like, and I think every Korean can relate with this. Like when you go to Korea, like cousins that you never thought you had, they're there.
Yeah.
You never knew you had this much family, but um, it's kind of sad, but they're just cousins. Depends on the family, but usually like they're just cousins, and
Right,
so
right, right.
they're not really there to. You can't depend on them, if I can just
Mm.
say that. And
Mm-hmm,
so,
mm-hmm.
um,
Okay,
yeah,
so you moved to Korea in
yeah,
2018 and like you already had something set up or you're just like looking for jobs.
yeah. So I never thought that I would actually try to live out here, but
Really?
no, I didn't think that was kind of possible. And I mean, keep in mind too, like even though like I tend to be a dreamer and all that, like I'm not saying that being a dreamer doesn't mean like you are like out of tune with with reality.
Okay, okay,
And
yeah.
so like I'm not saying I'm super old, but like I felt like it was like during that time is when I was started to enter my 30s,
Mm.
like, and so like I was kind of like afraid too, just because
Mm.
like I wanted to like one day have a family too
Yeah, yeah.
and be in a relationship to eventually get there and think about marriage and things like that, which is something that I value personally. And so um just as a man and all that, like I was just kind of like just in fear, like man, when do I do that? How can I do that
Mm.
doing this? And um so I didn't think that Korea I would do that. And so
Mm.
I just thought that like work, like coming out of that work was enough for me, like,
Right, right.
but I started coming to Korea a lot. Like it's what started happening was like I would gear my year calendar year um, based on my trips to Korea, because just even in 2016, 17, like in a year I would travel to Korea like 2 times, 3 times.
That's a lot.
And that's a lot. I mean, I'm not talking about like, I know there's people that travel a lot more than that than me, but that's a lot for me,
No,
you
that's a
know?
lot. I
Yeah,
think for a normal person that would be a lot to go back
right.
and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like literally it'd be like I come back. So let's say, I went January to February, and uh, we have a trip coming up during the fall. Then the remaining months I would literally prepare for going.
Right, right, right.
And so like I was preparing my mind, my heart, and also like material, whatever, like to and even and that time like I started to like that's when I kind of grew a lot too, just as a musician,
Mm.
as a rapper. And so I started to perform as well while I was go with these trips. And so I had a lot of things to work on before, um, and I didn't just do that. So I had to do a lot of freelance work as well. So it's really interesting what you do, um, what kind of comes before you, um, and you never know what kind of relationship, like borns like opportunity for work and things like that. And so I did a lot of different types of work for different people, um, to kind of support this kind of, I guess, mission or what we wanted to do.
Right, right.
And so, yeah, it never dawned on me that I could do it, but because I started going so much, and I started to kind of, you know, like literally prepare. Like the whole year, I would prepare to go to Korea. It's like that's when it started to kind of spark this idea, and the guys, those guys, really kind of help with that too. They're the ones who kind of encourage me a lot. Like, hey Juan, you should do that. You should think about it. And but yeah, I mean, I just I was just going to Korea so much that like that's when like that idea was born. And so people in Korea and also just back home would kind of encourage me, hey, you should try doing that. And so
Mm.
that's when I um, just did it. But I didn't have any plan.
So okay, just
And
to clarify
yeah,
for me, like your like the encouragement to go to Korea was to like start your career in Korea, or what was like the, do you know what I'm asking you? Um
yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry because it's like for me, like music and videography always kind of went hand in hand.
sure,
They're
yeah, yeah.
always
Understand.
related,
Yeah,
and
of
so
course.
I think the listeners might be confused, like, what's he, doing? But they always went hand in hand, and um, so I wanted to go to Korea to try to grow my platform in terms of as a rapper,
Okay, okay.
but also I needed to pursue videography as well in order to support that.
Okay.
And but videography wasn't just like a job to me either. So it was like a dual
Right.
thing.
Right.
So I know it could have kind of confusing, but I wanted to pursue both. And some of the opportunities that I got um, came from both. And
Mm.
honestly, like um, as a rapper, though, like I think just being a rapper alone wasn't enough for me to like open doors like that.
Mhm.
It was always this dual thing that I had kind of opened
Mm.
doors for me. From is what I realized is um, yeah. So I went to pursue both. I wanted to become like grow my skills and my like connections or like that platform here as
Yeah.
also as a video artist
Right.
and also as a rapper as well.
Okay.
So it's like a dual thing.
Okay.
Um,
So you had no plan,
had no
which is
plan.
super like not my personality at all.
Yeah,
But so I'm like, for me when I hear something like that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like that's so again, brave and a little bit
yeah,
crazy." But
yeah,
at the same time, like I feel like you also knew what you're getting yourself into, kind of like,
yeah.
you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, so how did you find work? I know you're doing music
Right.
too, but like, how did you find the freelance work? Or I guess you said you were working at a smaller music
Yeah,
production company. How did you
yeah.
even get that job?
So I feel like a lot of this. I'm not sure if the listeners can use me as a model.
Oh no, but
But
it's still, I'm sure, going to be super interesting. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah. No,
excited.
I mean, and this is why I talk about the character stuff a lot. It's because a lot of the opportunities that for me personally happen is because of like the connections that I've built. And so
Mm,
I did not look for this entertainment firm. Like I did not look for it. It just kind of fell on my lap because
Wow.
um, of the people that I met, and so
Mm.
like it was just really random, and um, yeah, and so literally, I don't recommend this, but if you have to do it, you should. I just kind of followed after my heart in some sense too, but because I was coming to Korea so much that I was just kind of like, why is this happening? Like at some points, like I wasn't even looking, and it just kind of like, it was just happening a lot, and so I was just like, because of where I was in life, I wanted to figure it out. If not now, I don't know if I can do it later on, and
Mm-hmm.
so I just kind of went for it, and then I also to myself, and I also prayed too to God, saying, Lord, I don't know why, like I'm going or what it is. Do you have purpose? I still don't know why I came here, but I'm not gonna go back until I literally can't eat anymore. That's what I said. That's what it took from me,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to also figure it out too for myself, and so that was important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't want to have any regrets, and so I just kind of went for it. And yeah, I did have some plans like, okay, where am I gonna be at for a month and things like that. I had those kind of plans, but as far as like, um, I was gonna try to freelance and things like that, um, but what happened was, um, there was this uh, connection that we've made to a um, person of influence, and he kind of knew my situation. Like
Mm-hmm.
we had this previous relationship, and
Are you allowed to tell me who this person is?
well, I mean, yeah, maybe I should. Maybe it'll make more sense. But
I think I know who it is.
yeah, yeah. So I work for the company I ended up working for is Kwan Entertainment, and so I ended up Kwan Entertainment is owned by an influencer in Korea named Haha. Haha is
No, because I noticed on your
yeah,
social media, he
right.
like was commenting. I'm like, oh, like what is this connection? Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how does he know haha? But then, okay, cool. Wow.
Right.
Okay, really underplayed it. But yeah,
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
going.
It's not like a for me. It's just like it's not a source of like you know.
I know it's not for
Yeah.
you, Juan, but for me it is, okay?
Okay. Right. But also, there's a lot of like layers of things that I can't share, and like
Which is fine. I just was
like
super
personal
curious.
stuff as well too.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, like I can say that um, like that's yeah, that's what happened, and so we've like the reason why I got connected with him is because of like me traveling with these guys
I
to Korea.
see. With
And
amp.
so yeah, with Amp, and for
Uh-huh.
some reason like um he like somebody connected us. And so haha, he's a good guy, and so
Yeah.
like he would he's older than us, so he
Mm-hmm.
would be like a good young, and
Mm.
he's already kind of known as as a nice guy in the industry, and I can say he is. And so he's just kind of a older brotherly kind. And so
Mm.
yeah, we had this previous relationship, and so um, it wasn't like best friend level type. No, no way. But it was still like enough to for him, and he's seen some of my work, my
Mm.
video stuff that I would do for myself and for others, and for some reason, like he liked my stuff, and so when in our meeting we're just hanging out, um, and then he just asked like, "What's up? Like, why are you doing here at this time and whatnot?" And so I shared with him my intent of
Mm.
try to be out here, and in that meeting, like he just kind of he knew what I was able to do, and so he actually, I guess he took a leap of faith as well, and he extended an invitation
Wow.
to try to work together.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and so um, that's what I did for 2 years,
that's
and
crazy.
it was great.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I just feel like so in that sense, working for Quan what is it?
Hmm.
What's
Quan
the
Entertainment. Yeah.
Quan Entertainment
Yeah.
for the last 2 years? And you said, um, with music and video, it kind of goes hand in hand for you. Like, so what was your job with them? Like, were you doing music videos or what kind of stuff were you doing?
Yeah. So I was just pretty much making any video that would help promote um, the artist within the label.
That's right. You mentioned that.
So
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's all right. And I made a few videos. I think pretty much by the time I came out from Quan, like I pretty much made for all the artists there, I made something for them, each
Mm,
artist. Um, so I was able honored and glad that I was able to do that. Um, but that's what I did. Just anything, mostly my primary thing was music videos,
mm-hmm.
in-house music video director. But um, anything other than that, like, because we're not always shooting music videos, and so
Right.
anything that promotes the label and the artist. And I did a lot of back when we were able to have shows um, before COVID. Like
Right.
uh, summer was a big part of a lot of festivals and stuff, and so I would go to these festivals and I would just film,
Mm.
and I would put these things together and use, and we would use it to market and things like that. So
I mean,
that's what I did.
so for somebody that, just knowing your background now,
Hmm.
I mean, for me, from where I stand, it just seems like a very ideal job. Like
Yeah.
for someone that loves music and loves the production of video and the marriage of the two of them. Like, did you feel that way while you're working there? Like, were you like, yeah, I
Hmm.
think this is something I'm really enjoying at this time?
Yeah, I really did enjoy my experience. Um, but I would say that this is not to like downgrade any places that I work, but there's no perfect place to work. That's
Right.
one thing. And
Uh
so
huh.
like there's pros and cons. And so um, like I did grow a lot in my experience in the 2 years, and um, it was in a way a perfect place.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like even they will be able to tell me how do I put this, like because I'm doing rap and music there, or music and videography. There's always this um, like a fine line
Mm,
between the two,
right.
and so there is that challenge. So the question was like, are you asking? Wasn't it a perfect place?
Oh, so
Was
I
that the
mean,
question?
like, for
Yeah.
me, just listening,
Yeah.
it just seems like a really good marriage of the two, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
just
Right.
sustaining your work,
Mm-hmm.
like, and having a income,
Yeah.
and also like, because you said, when you're in high school, a lot of your videos were driven by music, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, what you're explaining in the place you worked at for 2 years, in some sense, like, it seems ideal,
Right.
because of your love for both things.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you're saying it wasn't as ideal as you thought it would be.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it's also because I think like it's not anything. It doesn't have anything to do with like the company itself,
Right, right.
right? But it's just also just how the industry is,
Sure.
and
Yes.
also just being out in Korea, and
Okay.
so
So like maybe the
right,
environment wasn't ideal for you.
yeah, yeah, just
Yeah.
the environment, like again, just fitting in, I guess try to
Right.
refit in
Yes.
back into the Korean way of things.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Um,
I feel like even, I mean, again, I know nothing. I know nothing about Korea, honestly. I just
uh-huh.
know what I hear and what people tell me.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would just, in such a demanding industry,
Yeah.
too, it would be really stressful.
Yeah, the thing about it is that you're not the only person that's stressed, and so everybody is stressed. And
Right.
so results is somewhat everything in these types of places. And the thing is, like, it doesn't have anything to do with like the people themselves. Like every place that I worked, Quan, the first job or wherever, like every client that I work with, they're all good people. Like I don't think I've worked with any like crooks.
Mm.
Like I've never worked with anyone like that, thankfully. But it's just like, it's just unfortunately there's challenges. It's just nothing's perfect. And so especially for a place like Korea, like there's a lot of pressure and a lot of comparisons,
Sure, yeah.
a lot of there's a structure here that you kind of abide, and it's slowly and but surely it's like coming out. Like Korea is like on its way out of
Mm-hmm.
certain molds
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of hindering some creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not saying that Western work culture is like the most healthy either,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some pros of like Western culture work that I feel like it could be beneficial. Um, just being able to speak your mind freely without certain like um, condemnation
Yeah.
of some sorts. So yeah, there's definitely, but it's not limited to just work, but just the environment here.
Right.
And like for me, um, that was there, but the thing is, it's like that's there everywhere, um,
Mm.
and I feel like every company has that kind of challenge. And for me personally, it was just also like there's other factors too that was
Right.
important to me.
Right.
If career and all that was just the most important thing, then I think it might be different. But I think, um, yeah, I don't think no human being is just like that either. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, I am like I'm super grateful, and for me, like there's still like every place that I worked, they're family to me still. Like they
Mm.
I don't talk to them all the time, but like um, but I have like yeah, they're they're still friends and brothers, and so I'm just grateful for each avenue. And um, yeah, that's what you kind of realize too. What you learn, you know, is um, it'd be great if you just end up working for one place and the rest of your life thing, but um, you should also embrace the fact that um, yeah, in your part of your journey, there's going to be a lot of different path, and within that path, there's also a lot of different uh, opportunities, and um, so as long as you're open to that kind of thing, um, you should be straight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, Man, I feel like there's so many layers to your story, and
there it really is. Yeah.
I hope we were able to talk about kind of at least the key points. And I think you shared a lot of insight on just even for me, I feel like the piece on your character
Hmm.
and building that is something that will help in any whether you are creative or not, like, and
Yeah.
I think that piece for me is um yeah, extremely like wise.
Hmm.
And I wanted to ask you, maybe for somebody listening right now to your story, and um maybe they're a creative, right? And like they aren't a big risk taker, Like they're not really a big risk taker. Um, yeah, how would you encourage them to take more risks?
Mhm. Man, that's a good question. Uh,
Because like I feel like
yeah, it's a really good question.
you just don't know until you do it, but at the same time,
Right.
I can look at your life
Yeah.
and wouldn't you say the risk was worth it?
It's definitely for me it was worth it, but I would like to also say that it doesn't come without its fears.
Mm,
Um, and you know, like for me, like um, when I look back, like none of those things were guaranteed for me, and so I'm just filled with a lot of like thankfulness.
mm,
Um, but it was worth it. It was rich, really rich, and um, I think at the end of the day, you have to kind of ask yourself like the deeper questions in life. That's what I realized. I know it's kind of getting deep, but like like your profession, what you do, you know, there's like you said, it's multi-layered because like why do you do what you do? You
mm,
know, like why do you get up in the morning and like why do you decide to do that? Why do you decide to eat this versus that? It's like there's so many like things, and so like I think that's an important question you have to keep asking yourself as like the foundation. Like why do you want to take risks? Like what's the
mm.
purpose? Like what do you want to do? Like and it's something I'm trying to figure out myself, and I've kind of embraced that fact that there's always going to be some kind of underlying risk factor in life.
Yeah.
Like today I'm going to step out, there's a risk, you know, and so it's like you embrace that always going to be a risk. There's never going to be a time in your life that it's going to be without risk, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how encouraging that is, but I think just embracing that there's going to be risk always. Like that's a very good question because I don't even know how I can encourage myself
Yeah.
sometimes,
Right.
but
It's so hard. It's so
yeah,
hard. I mean,
but
I feel I'm
yeah,
encouraged by you, you know. I feel like
right.
seeing that you took the risk and just trusting, I mean, trusting, just trusting, you know.
Yeah,
There's
uh-huh.
risk, but there's faith too.
Yeah,
So, it goes hand in hand or even maybe faith is
right.
risky. I don't know.
So whatever you do, what I'm trying to say is you have to kind of figure it out for yourself. And so for
Mm,
me, it was faith had a lot to do with a lot of my decisions and the decisions that I make. And so
right.
and that's the thing. It's like, what do you want? Is it money? Okay, if it's money, which is not money is not like itself evil. What you do with it is can be evil, but in and of itself, it's not. It can be a good thing. And so if that's what you want to do, then um, you know, I think like you have to make certain compromises
Sure. Yeah.
and like, but what is your focus? And so for me,
Mm,
like money wasn't like the primary uh inspiration for me. Like in fact, what I valued more, I think this is a good point too, is that if you value that, then you should take that path. But I think like for me, freedom is what I valued more. I
mm,
think when it comes down to it, it's like I want to be free uh, to do what I like to do, and I know money plays definitely a factor in that, but that's not the reason, you know. And so, um, so I think freedom, you know,
mm.
and I know there's rare cases like you blow up, you make it, and you know you kind of live that dream life or that everybody dreams of, but I think like you know that's kind of a rarity, and even within that there's issues and
Mm,
things that you have to do to maintain it. um, like certain compromises were made to get there, but like I don't know if all that makes sense or if it's any encouraging, but one, like risk is part of life. You just have to take it and know that you're already taking risks, um, small or big, but you have to figure out what you want, and also it's okay to not have it all together. But I think like you have to kind of, as you take a risk, like you have to um, have a sort of like have a you have to depend on something
Yeah.
in some sense. Like
Yeah.
if it's just your like it's gonna be okay kind of feel, you have to depend on some sort of, you know, something like that, you
Yes.
know. But
I
for
get what
me, it
you're
was
saying.
faith. You know,
Yeah,
like you have to kind of do that, and
for sure.
as that grows more, like your ability to take risk. And I know that for some people, like it seems more risky, but to me, at this point, like it doesn't seem that risky. It's just you don't even think of it like that at certain points. It's just you just do it. You know, you
Right,
just like
right,
do it,
right,
and it's
right,
like a
right.
it just comes natural. You know,
For sure.
and that's the thing. Like I don't have this all figured out. I just realized there's definitely fear that comes into play, but I think like I enjoy the challenge, but at the same time there's fear. But it's just I enjoy the adventure as well,
Mm,
and so I don't know what the future is like, but um, I think that's part of the adventure. But it's definitely rich though, rich with um, many things that I've ever been able to experience. Had I not take that leap of faith, like I don't regret it all. Regret it at all.
yeah.
Um, even um, just like like the types of people that I've been able to meet.
Mm,
You know, it's like it's really like what do you value? You know, like do you value community? Do you value people?
mm,
Like what is it? You have to figure it out. Um, and so for me, I value those things, and so
mm.
um, I think I don't regret it at all because just the experience and also just the richness of those things that comes with that experience, and also just like the people that you're left with, like the bonds and um, the connections that you're able to build. And it's not just a season thing. For me, it's a lifelong thing. At least I try to make it. I don't know
Mm,
about the people that I meet, but for me, like when they look at me, but for me, it's lifelong. Like if I meet you, like I make a connection, and it's all love and it's all good, and you know, like I try to make it a lifelong thing. And so yeah, I know it's just we're talking about music and video stuff, but as for Won Jang, like for me personally, like I think many creatives feel that way too, just because we kind of tend to be these things are important,
yeah.
and these things we put into our arts. Like what else do we put into our arts besides our life and our honesty, our fears? And so I use all of this to express it into my art. And I don't know how everything works, but some mysterious way people are able to listen to those things and like value those things. And you know, it's a mysterious thing. And I think I don't know how to explain it, but that's what I enjoy as well, like
Yeah.
that connection. And
Yeah. And I think
yeah,
you did a great job explaining it, actually.
did I?
Like, yeah, yeah, I
I don't know.
completely
Yeah,
understand. Um, well, we're kind of coming to the end of our time
sure.
together. But you know, you shared a lot of good advice, and I usually ask people, "Oh, like, do you have any advice for?" But I feel like you hit a lot of amazing points, and
Hmm.
but I did want to ask, you know, in this next transition for you, I'm wondering if you have thought about. I don't know if I don't know if you have a plan, which
Yeah,
but is perfectly fine.
sure.
But I'm just curious about like just is your mission the same? Like your heart?
Mm,
What are some of your goals coming back to the States?
right. You know, I know that, like, you know, I shared a lot of lofty things and a lot of ideas, and it can be a little confusing. And it's just kind of somewhat all over the place. But I think ultimately, like, you know, for me, yeah, I mean, the heart of it stays the same in that I just want to. Um, I know it can sound kind of cliche, but I want to be happy. I
Mm,
think that's one. But what I mean by that is different for a lot of people. But um, and for me, like I keep saying, for me, but like my faith has a play in that. Like, how do I be happy? Well, from my understanding, is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And so it's, I know that uh, Christians share that with each other. That's kind of like the ultimate purpose. But um, I just realized that, I feel like God has gifted me with certain uh, gifts,
mm,
and I guess that's what you call calling or whatnot. But I was able to fortunately figure that out, and music and expression, video, and things like that will always play a part. So yeah, my heart, my intention, my mission, if I can call it that, will stay the same. But I've always that's number one. But I've just wanted to, um, yeah, I just wanted to be blessed and also be a blessing to others. And how do I do that? That's something I'm not sure about. But as far as like just little plans, like yeah, of course, like I plan to come back and look for opportunities to work in the video field and just continue to grow as an artist. And also music I will always make music in some format. Um, and that's the thing. Like I know that you know the goal. I guess again it kind of falls back into like why what's your intention of becoming an artist, like a rapper or a singer, but for me the intention was ever always not necessarily like the success part. If it comes, great, thank you. But if that's all your goal is, then you'll be uh, brought down to reality quick, because
mm.
in this industry, even if you are talented, like yeah, it will take you places, but that's not the only thing that matters. And a lot of times, like just because you're talented doesn't mean you're gonna get heard, or there's just so many what ifs, like you know what I mean. So there's a lot of dependence there. So um, yeah, the mission stayed the same, but I think um, yeah, it
No,
stays the
yeah.
same.
Um, well, I'm excited to
Yeah,
have you back in America because maybe we can be friends. And
I thought we
and
were
you
already
could
friends.
oh, we're
We're
already
just gonna
friends. Sorry.
yeah,
Lifelong friends
right,
from what I understand.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no, but for
So
real. For
yeah,
real though.
yeah. So I mean, again, those are what I'm planning. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm working on an album right now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm working on an album.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and so
When's like do you have a date in mind for release?
maybe during the fall.
Okay.
Um, but I'm a like my goal is just like to whatever end. It's just you ask a lot of creatives, why do you do it? You just do it. It's just a part of you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so regardless of the results, it's the same thing for me. So I'm gonna keep, no matter where you are. It don't matter if you're in Africa or in Europe or in America, Korea. Like, for me, like, um, I just want to be faithful to each season in my life and be able to share that. And if people can be blessed or like that, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, sorry. I just
Okay.
one quick question. So
Go
do
ahead.
you still produce your own music?
No, no, I don't. I don't produce my stuff anymore. I used to when I was younger, but I think like with that, like uh, I, just personally, I felt like it's better to depend on others.
Right.
because they're better producers. But I personally, though, that's one of my goals, though, to um, get better at that too. Get
I
back
see. I
doing that.
see. I'm just
Um,
curious. So like
yeah.
you go to a studio and you like make your music there?
No, no, no. Studio meaning like it could be your home. So like I have a
Okay.
home
Okay,
like
okay.
setup, and
And then you
so
just do it at home and then you send it to somebody?
yeah. So I work with like some certain people, and
Uh-huh.
I usually like right now because I'm in Seoul, like I work with some people in the States, and um, especially now, just the season that we're in,
Uh-huh.
a lot
Uh-huh.
of just Skype meetings and things.
Right,
But
right, right.
um, yeah, and this is another podcast, but you just as you progress in your career, in your path, like you meet a lot of interesting people, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
you stay connected and you build with them, and so for me, like I'm still growing in that part in that path. Like I've yet to meet everyone that I want to meet, or who knows who I will meet in the future. But
Right.
yeah, you work with them and you communicate, and um, it really depends on your gifting and what you're good at. But for me, like I just try to focus on actual the rap part and the making of the song, and but I definitely chime in if I work with a producer.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I give advice, and you know it's like the music is being made for you, for your artistry, and
Right.
so you have to voice your opinion and your preference and what you want to try to express at that time. And so yeah, just going back and forth.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
record it, send it, and back and forth. And but if it's in the studio, obviously all of that is done in one
I
spot.
see,
Yeah.
in-house. Man, you for real though, Won Jang part 2 next time.
Yeah, yeah, stay tuned. And yeah, you know, I think you're just gonna get this type of conversations though. Like I don't know, like with other artists that you meet, but I think there's a lot of like almost like spiritual level of stuff, like layers, you know, and that kind of stuff is important just because like for me, as you're asking about my life, is like, man, like why did you do this? Why did you do that? Like what made you decide that? Why did you risk that? It's like, man, it's so like, you know, I tend to be very honest too. And so it's like you're cutting through a lot of like spiritual things as well. Um and it's crazy because there's a lot of like I don't know either kind of questions myself. And so
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like
I hope it was good. Well,
yeah.
would you be okay, Juan, with if someone was like maybe interested in like learning more about what you do, or even like I feel like there could be people that have questions about like even moving to Korea
Yeah.
and starting a life there. Would you be okay to be connected with them through me?
No, yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, if I could be of value of some way, yeah, then for sure.
That's awesome. Well, hey
Yeah.
guys, thanks so much for listening today to today's episode. You heard it here. Juan is open to chatting with you. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me through social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Juan, thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you.
And your
for bearing
heart
with me.
and your transparency, you're awesome.
Yes, thank you.
What I see
All right, guys,
where
until
I've
next
been.
time.
Now the water
Bye.
doesn't look the same.
Bye, guys.
자가고
Peace.
있어도 어제를 기억해. 오늘만큼만 다시 가볼래. God, I need it now. 다시 떠올려줘. Could you turn the time back? Do remind me how I used to be like that. Just like the stars. 많은 시간 멀리 보냈지만 시간을 좀 다시 돌려줘봐. Give it to me right back. Just like the stars. God, I need it now. 다시 떠올려줘. Could you turn the time back? Do remind me how I used to be like that. Just like the stars. 많은 시간 멀리 보냈지만 시간을 좀 다시 돌려줘봐. Give it to me right back. Just like the stars.